All right, hello and welcome to this episode. Today we're going to be talking about pornography and mental health. So this is a OCD and anxiety FAQ, or frequently asked questions, and this is questions that I actually get pretty frequently. So I wanted to at least share some ideas on this, and this is by no means I'm like not the expert on this particular field in any means, but obviously. I'll speak into some personal experience as well as just some kind of overall big picture thoughts on porn when it comes to its impact with mental health, as well as relationships and one's sex life and stuff like that. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit more PG-13 kind of conversation here. So if make sure you're not listening to this in the presence of children and stuff. Before we dive in, real quick, if you could help us out by liking and subscribing, as well as leaving a nice comment or review on iTunes, it would really help out the show, and I'd really appreciate it. So when it comes to pornography, the thing is that and I know that this is going to generally gear towards the male audience. Pornography doesn't seem to be as big of an issue with the female audience. It's not to say that doesn't exist there, and doesn't, there's not females that don't wrestle with pornography addiction and stuff like that. But this is obviously going to be kind of geared towards men, and I'm going to kind of speak into that context mainly. But these are just some general thoughts on pornography. So number one, it's a like obviously I'm not for, and I don't support porn. I don't support the industry as a whole. It's not to say that I haven't consumed it and that it wasn't a part of my life, especially when I was younger. And I just didn't know better, and so, cause it's always sold as like this harmless, no one's getting hurt thing. And, it's not something that is part of my life, and it's not something that I integrate into any of my practices. And it's something that I actively encourage other people not to do. And I'll kind of explain my thought on that and why. Number one, it's a pseudo replacement for intimacy. It's not real. It totally takes the emotion out of sexuality and becomes just a physical thing. And which, when you do that, it creates, you start to look at people, and people become objects, right? They become, and really when you look at the energy levels of, sex as a whole, really, sex is meant for the energy level of like love and connection, right? And that requires vulnerability and, and all of that, where when you're talking about something that's very just physical and just like essentially a physical act, and you're removing the complete emotional component of it, it's in the energy of lust and greed, right? And desire, right? And those things are not synonymous. Right? Those things are not the same by any means. They're very far apart, actually. And once we once we have somehow, merged these or think that they're similar, that's part of the problem. Right? And so that's number one, is that it's a pseudo replacement, and it's by no means, anything close to what like healthy sexuality is in a relationship. And, also when it comes to, pornography, it's, when you really think about it very, very logically, it's what you're doing is you're getting aroused via watching two people, or, obviously there's many things people can see in porn, but you're essentially voyeurism. Like what's arousing you is voyeurism, and that doesn't translate into healthy sexuality. Right? Like that doesn't necessarily, like just because when you engage in pornography, like that can obviously disrupt your ability to become, aroused and perform in a regular, healthy, real sexual experience. Okay. Like, I hope that you can see that, because essentially you're just becoming aroused at watching a screen or watching others perform acts, which is an act of voyeurism, is very different than actual like healthy, intimate sexuality, right? The other thing, and this is kind of more like one of the things that really just totally, like, an author who was writing on this, he wrote in the book, Hard Times Create Strong Men. And when he was talking about, men in general when it comes to pornography, and why, like, he was so adamant in his discouragement of the use, is for two main reasons. Number one is because it's, and like, this is his language, but it's essentially like, it's degrading to you as a man in some way, right? And he talks about this idea of like cuckold culture, right, in the book. And this is in the book, Hard Times Create Strong Men. And he talks about how, like, pornography is like the ultimate embodiment of that. Like, you're watching someone else have sex with someone you want to have sex with. And that idea of like just degrading yourself by doing that. Right. So that was one interesting point. And the other interesting point is when it comes to men specifically, like, testosterone in the body is like a superpower for men. And, his theory in the book, which I thought was really interesting, was the idea of like watching pornography and masturbating all the time essentially is a form of castration to men. Like, you're taking this energy, right, and just, releasing it, and, and not caring about it, not harnessing it, not channeling it into anything good. And it's a way for men just to become like these docile creatures. And he equates it to, I thought very accurately, to this idea of like an oxen and a bull, like, in the difference between the animals, right? The oxen being just a castrated bull, and what happens to men, in that light, and that idea of just, engaging in this pseudo sexuality with pornography, and essentially the castration that happens as a result of that, and this very docile, just low testosterone problem that then kind of results of that is just going to produce exponential problems for our society, where we're a society that absolutely should value and needs men, especially in families and fathers, and in any role that could be out there. So, I think porn is a very dangerous thing. And I know it was always, especially when I was in, like, younger years, it was always talked about like it was this harmless thing, and it wasn't a big deal and all of that. And not to mention that I think as you go deeper into like the darker worlds of that culture, right? Like, just you begin to make compromises and find yourself exposed to things you didn't want to be exposed to, and perhaps going down paths in life that you probably don't want to have to go down, right? And this is like what happens with like a frog boiling in water, is that it doesn't know it's boiling if you just kind of slowly just let the water boil. And I think I'd equate that to pornography, just because people consume it so openly and talk about it so openly, and it's become so normalized that, essentially on most social media now, it's, in many ways low grade pornography. It's one of the reasons I don't have social media on my phone. Just because I just know what's just constantly being streamed on just, it's just everywhere. Right. Like, and I think that's part of the problem, is this hypersexualized, over-sexualized culture is obviously not good for one's mental health. It is a complete pseudo, or like false, form of sexuality, of like real intimate sexuality. And I think engaging in it obviously has long-term impacts, as far as, because it's just essentially engaging in voyeurism. And so then that doesn't translate into healthy, intimate relationships. So when it comes to mental health, obviously a huge part of mental health is, being able to connect with people, being able to have like intimate relationships and true connection. And I absolutely think pornography prevents that, hinders that, and really takes away, especially from a male perspective. And I'm speaking into it primarily for that because I'm a guy. But it's essentially a form of just castration of men. And that's why, I'm against it. And I don't believe it's healthy. And I don't believe that, it's something that's going to help your mental health, physical health, relationships, or any of that. So those are my thoughts on it. Obviously, it can be used as a compulsion and all this other stuff, but I wanted to talk into some more underlying points of what I really believe about it, because once I really understood these beliefs, that's what really changed my whole view of pornography as a whole. Even the low grade pornography that people are exposed to on social media, right, left and right, and just the importance of not consuming it and having it as part of, especially like an ongoing consumption, because it's just not going to be good for you. So those are my thoughts on it. Feel free to comment below and share your own opinions. And again, with that, if you're looking for help with OCD and anxiety, please check out restoredminds.com, or you can click the little links below, as we have resources to help you. So thanks so much, and I hope this was helpful, and I wish you guys a great day. Hey there. So if you enjoyed that video, we've linked up a few more videos that we think you'd find helpful as well. And if you have found this helpful, we'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing. And if you're looking for help and guidance, please check out restoredminds.com, as we have several options for you to get started. See you guys soon.